Hi everyone, and welcome to my lounge room. I am here at home and I'm going to share the first of a series of little quick vlogs that I want to create this year to share some of the key concepts that we learn about and practice in the Francis Project about church renewal. So I hope these will bless you. Today, for the first time that I've done this, I want to simply share, instead of a practical principle, an overarching idea, which is simply that church renewal is always an act of rebuilding. Church renewal is always an act of rebuilding. This means that when we talk about church renewal, when we're talking about the way that God breathes new life and fresh expression and re-energizes and recommits and refocuses and reconciles his church, the body, it's not simply a return to some grander day, some better day, some moment in history when everything was right, nor is it ever about starting something from scratch, from some kind of a clean slate, a brand new plant, a brand new beginning. Whenever we work with God hand in hand in the renewal of the church, in evangelization, in discipleship training, we're always involved in a work of rebuilding. Rebuilding means that we have to bring together the old and the new. Rebuilding means that we are reconstructing and deconstructing what we've known. Rebuilding means that we are working with tradition and that we are building on top of a history that has been given to us, that we have inherited. And our task is to both bless and critique that history, to steward it faithfully. We're also called to be attuned to the signs of the times and to see what new thing God might be doing today. So this is a picture that I want to share as we think about rebuilding and that ministry and what that might look like in your context, in your workplace, in your home, in your community. And this is a picture of Francis and the first brothers that he gathered around his vision for this fresh expression of the kind of apostolic life that is described in Matthew 10 when Jesus sends out the apostles 2 by 2, and they go from town to town, and he tells them to travel light and to never charge money for the gospel and to find people of peace. The Franciscans were a fresh expression of this vision, a recapturing of it, a reclaiming of it, and a new way of expressing it in the context of a religious community in the 12th and 13th century where it started. So what we see here is that Francis and the brothers travelled from Assisi to Rome by foot. Probably would have taken them about 3 days of walking to ask the Pope for his blessing, and the Pope at the time in 1209 was Pope Innocent III. And they did receive the Pope's blessing for them to continue to live this rule of life that Francis had sketched down, that he believed was from God, and to continue to explore and expand the ministry that they believed God was calling them to. And so at the very beginning of the formation of this community, which still influences the church today, which we're still talking about today, is this idea of bringing together what's new and emerging with the tradition, with the existing structure, and in a way that comes under authority. So I wonder, as you look at this picture, how do you feel about it? Where would you place yourself in this image? How do you feel about expressions of faith that are new, that are a bit edgy, that seem a little fringy, that might draw the critique of others? And how do you feel about the episcopal structure and the authority of the church and the call to come under that authority? Depending on your experiences, you might position yourself differently in this image. Depending on your experience, you might feel really comfortable with the idea of asking for episcopal blessing or oversight. Or you might feel really comfortable with moving in circles with people who seem a little edgy, a little strange, a little bit like they don't fit the norm of how we do church life. What we see in this image, in this moment in history, which was so core to the Franciscan vision, growing and expanding and moving forward and not just becoming another grassroots movement that kind of burnt out quickly and was never heard of again, is this beautiful, rich, brave coming together of the old and the new in this act of rebuilding. The past is honoured, the authority structure is consulted, and there is blessing to move into the new thing God is doing. One of my favourite people, Bishop Justin Duckworth, who's an Anglican bishop in Wellington, he says that when God builds a new ministry or a new movement, when there's an act of renewal or a prophetic kind of leadership emerging in the life of the church, he says that two things are needed for that person. The first is a mentor, someone who understands the new thing, who can skill them in it, counsel them in it, and journey with them in it, in developing this vision. The second is a sponsor. A sponsor is a person who has authority in the shape or life of the church where you are positioned, where God has put you. The episcopal structure that you come under, the eldership that you come under. That is part of the anointing. And so part of the challenge of rebuilding is finding who those mentors and sponsors are going to be, and having the courage to have the brave conversation of putting that vision in front of people and finding out who is the person of peace going to be. So I will leave you with that thought for this month. Who is your mentor, or who are your mentors? Who is your sponsor, or who are your sponsors? And is there a conversation that needs to be had on either side of this picture, the old and the new coming together? What question do you need to ask next, and who do you need to ask it of?